Welcome back. Symone Sanders, the State of the Union. What would the post-State of the Union feeling be like for Biden without Rick Scott and Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Well, I wouldn't know. I mean, look, Rick Scott's plan was months and months in the making, and so that was already there. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene, sans her, it still would have been something. The Republicans in the chamber, and I know, Garrett was in there. I watched him on TV afterwards. The booing, it was tasteless. And it allowed the president to engage with the hecklers, but come away not looking small, which is often hard to do. But I also think this exchange on Social Security and Medicare was quite important because after that, you had the president, the vice president, the entire cabinet going out this week and reiterating and reinforcing what the president said on that stage. Look, in polling, Republicans often get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to the economy, when it comes to taxes, even though there has not been substantial pieces of legislation in our recent history to support that. But because they say it so much, people believe that it's true. Democrats, I think, have to do better about saying the thing over and over and over.
Jonah, do you accept sort of my premise here that sort of what Bill Clinton acknowledged in the mid-90s, suddenly now Republicans in that chamber, okay, we don't want to cut spending anymore?
Yeah, look, I mean, no one is consistent on the spending issues on either side of the aisle. I think I agree with Symone. I agree with the premise of all this, that politically this is a big win for Joe Biden. But policy-wise, the State of the Union was a bit of a dog's breakfast. I mean, it was all over the place. He's pro-capitalism, but he wants to be for competition, except he wants all buy American and economic nationalism. The reality is
who loves that more these days?
No, look, it's very popular. Yeah. It's very popular.
That was one of the few bipartisan standing ovations.
I agree, and it depresses me as a free market guy. But Rick Scott, his stupid gimmick about subsetting these things is stupid politically and all that kind of stuff, and everyone's obsessed with the politics of this. On policy, Rick Scott is closer to the right than everybody who's giving a standing ovation in there because Social Security and Medicare are going broke, and we have to figure out how to fix entitlements, and that everyone sort of laughs that off because it's such bad politics.
I got to play this Mitch McConnell taking on Rick Scott here because I'm trying to figure out how much of this is about Republican politics and how much of this is about Rick Scott. Here's what McConnell said about the back and forth.
That's not a Republican plan. That was the Rick Scott plan. I mean, it's just a bad idea. I think it will be a challenge for him to deal with this in his own reelection in Florida, a state with more elderly people than any other state in America.
Obviously, Rick Scott challenged Mitch McConnell. What's interesting is that Rick Scott decided to give it right back to McConnell here. This is what had seemed to be a tamped-down feud is now out in the open today.
Well, and I think that serves Rick Scott's interests. I don't think it serves McConnell's. I mean, look, Mitch McConnell is better than any politician I've ever covered at not saying the thing he doesn't want to say. He's very comfortable saying nothing when he wants to. So when he says something like this is well thought out.
Everything is intentional.
Everything is intentional, and he means it. Now, I don't think this is about the leadership race because I don't think McConnell ever thought Rick Scott was a serious challenger. But I think this is a warning to anybody else that, guys, I know what I'm doing. I want to be back in the majority. If you think you have a plan, bring it to me or keep it to yourself. Rick Scott gets talked about for this, which is good for Rick Scott. Mitch McConnell would like him to go quietly sit back at his desk.
You know, in fact, I do want to read the whole quote that Scott said, just in fairness, if we're going to have McConnell rip Scott. Here's what Scott said back, Leigh Ann. He's always sort of backed up Biden. So this is what he's doing. He's backing up Biden again. He doesn't believe that we ought to have a plan. It just seems as if this is only going to help the White House more continue to find a wedge.
Yeah, absolutely. So Rick Scott is a gift to the White House, and he is a thorn in the side of McConnell, as Garrett said, who wants to win back the majority. So this feud between McConnell and Scott goes back it goes back to the last election cycle, where McConnell blames Rick Scott for still being minority leader and not majority leader. But this issue of Social Security and Medicare, it is not going to go away. Biden said at the State of the Union, great, we're all in agreement now. But no, it's never not been an issue in a campaign season. It's going to be an issue this time. It's going to play into 2024. And guess what? There's actually a bipartisan working group right now I interviewed Kirsten Sinema this week. She's part of it. And they're going to present a plan to address Social Security. So this is not going to go away.
Not only that, but it does feel like that we're going to lift the debt limit with a bunch of commissions, aren't we? Well, commissions and committees and all sorts of things so people can say, hey, we're going to do this stuff.
So I talked to Jerry Bernstein from the Economic Council at the White House, and I asked, well, one, if you're not going to negotiate on the debt ceiling, what is really going on here? And he reinforced this conversation about the budget. The president's going to put his budget out on March 9th. The White House's position, in my understanding, is show me your budget from the Republican Party's point of view. So that is where they're going to have the debate. And I think that is where I think the White House will allow McCarthy to have some kind of win on the budget negotiations, but they're not going to touch the debt ceiling.
Jonah, to the Republican presidential primary, are we going to see Social Security as a wedge issue in a Republican primary?
I doubt it. I think that almost everybody is going to capitulate essentially to the Donald Trump position, which was don't touch him ever.
How do they handle the flip-flop? Because they all have it, really, except him.
How do they handle all the other flip-flops? I don't know.
There's your quote. There's your quote of the show. Well, congratulations. That should get you trending on Twitter. That's all your favorite friends. Hey, before we go, this week on the Chuck Toddcast, I spoke with Peter Baker and this person, Leigh Ann Caldwell, about how this week's State of the Union ranks with years past. And after we get off the air, we'll keep the conversation going. Look for a new episode later this morning. The Chuck Toddcast is free wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe by scanning that QR code on your screen right now or by going to NBCnews.com/Chuck Toddcast.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.